Radio. I'm your host, Annette McCoy, and with me at this time of the month, every month, is Marney Perna. Welcome, Marney.
Thank you, Annette. Always lovely to be here.
Now, before we start, there's just a couple of things that we need to remind you about. And the first one is that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. If you are watching this anywhere else but via the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, you might like to go over there because that's where you can comment, ask questions, and join in the discussion. Marnie and I delight when people join us in the discussion. And today's discussion is, I think, a really interesting one. I was walking with a girlfriend this morning and she's wondering, Marnie, why her body is giving her messages. And I said, you don't know how to stop. And she roared with laughter. The topic today, where are you in your list of priorities?
Usually not on the top.
Well, sorry, Marnie.
So usually not on the top.
That's exactly right. And yet that's where we need to be if we're going to be of service to those we love, to anyone who we'd like to be of service to. We have to first look after ourselves. I think, Marnie, before you have spoken about a car, you know, how we treat our cars. We look after them, do we? I mean, I know, I must admit, I tend to work with everything until it goes bung, and then I go, oh.
Yeah, maybe. But they also have little red lights that appear and let us know that things are a bit challenged here.
That's exactly right. Yes, and I must admit, I do look for the red lights, and I do appreciate that, yes, they're warnings, and yet do something about it. Do we look at our own warning lights, or do we soldier on and maybe get a bigger warning, a more drastic warning?
I think with it depends on what your position in life is. Like mum, you're either a mum or a carer, or you're on your own, or a business owner, or you're one of all three and four. So we wear many hats. So I think we have to sometimes wear our personal hat as well. So what's your name, and have you got a hat with your name on it?
I like that.
Okay. Yeah, and that can be a metaphysical hat. It doesn't have to be a real hat, although a real hat is definitely a full-on reminder that it's about you. So because, I mean, I'm a clinician, most of our listeners would know, or if they don't know, I'm a practicing kinesiologist and natural therapist, and I'll often have people come in and they don't identify with their own name because they're so overwhelmed, they're so busy, there's so much going on in their lives that their name just doesn't come into it anymore. Their title or identity is linked up to what I say job, but I mean any job. So whether it's a mum, dad, whatever. So just being their own name is quite often very foreign to them, and they don't respond to it. It's actually a stress statement for them to say their own name. So they lose their self-identity.
Right. I can remember years ago, Marnie, when I was teaching and we had a survey to do annually. And I can remember saying that my job was the most important thing to me. Whoa. That now I look back and think, my goodness me, where was the family and where was me?
Yeah.
I don't even think that me was on the list that we were given.
No, it wouldn't have been. It's why a lot of men struggle with retirement, because their identity is caught up in what they have done for so many years and what their profession is. And when they lose that, they lose a piece of themselves, and that they haven't quite worked out who they are. They're very unsure about what to do with themselves afterwards. But definitely on a health perspective, which is mainly our slant here, if we don't look after ourselves and don't listen to the messages that our body's giving us, it will give us a bigger message. And when that happens, it's usually not as easily fixed, and it takes a little bit longer to rectify. So you really do need to start to be in tune. And look, it's lovely to be in tune with your own body. And it's not about being so self-absorbed that that's all you think about either. It's about saying, okay, well, I'm getting these kind of messages. Even think about some of the words that you're using. You know, I'm drained, I'm tired. If you're saying those things, your body is reminding you to say it. And it's saying to you, what action can you take to make yourself less tired? What do you need to put in place that assists you to have a sleep?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So, you know,
I'd like to welcome Chrissy to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Chrissy. We get very excited when real people come and chat. It's
That's
lovely.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Really lovely. How can we help you, Chrissy? Have you got a question about self-care?
I liked what you were saying, Marnie, about our language, because it does give us messages if we're aware. And that's what we like to remind people about today, isn't it? The different warnings, if you like, the different prods that we're given, that sometimes we're so busy being busy, we're missing the all of the signposts.
I think it's the word's not frantic, but it's that kind of energy, and like, you shouldn't need to be hit in the face with a wet fish to make you stop and listen, right? But so often we have, because we in hindsight, we go, oh, I knew that. Why didn't I listen to that intuition or that little voice that suggested it? And look, it's not always a health thing. We had a prime example a few weeks ago where we were having shorting in our electrical system, which the inconvenience of that was, of course, we couldn't get in and out of the electric gate. So it was a major inconvenience if you're wanting to go somewhere. And we were running, like, my husband was outside at the power box and he was flicking the switches, and then I'd race around and plug things into power and things like that. And we did this for about an hour and a half trying to work out what was stopping or what was short-circuiting the power board. You know how it's got that safety switch?
Yes.
Something was flicking the safety switch. And we both sat and talked, and we said, you know, where we lived previously, it was always an external power point. So our minds immediately went to the front gate because there was all these power plugs for the electric gate, and we were blaming the electric gate. And it wasn't until my husband walked past the back veranda and looked over at this. And I said it was always an extra. It was either the sullage pump or a power point that was outside somewhere. And he went, and he listened. I didn't. I was still going around checking PowerPoints. And he lifted the tank lid of the septic system, and there was our challenge. It was the sullage pump had stopped. So every time it tried to start again, it would short circuit the power board. But we'd spent an hour and a half trying to work out what appliance was plugged into what circuit, because there's usually 2 or 3 circuits. So I suppose we now have a map of the circuits, which is helpful. But, geez, it would have saved a bit of time to have realised it was the sullage. And yet I'd said it. I had said it was always our sullage pump that broke, that short-circuited at Mango Hill. So, yeah, you don't always listen, but your hindsight does. And then you go, oh, I knew that. So what you need to do is honour that you had that thought in the first place, rather than dishonour the fact that you were silly enough not to listen. You have to go, oh, I need to listen more to my intuition, rather than what we would normally do is, oh, how silly am I for not listening to our intuition. So, again, it's that language coming into play there.
Right. Now, Chrissy has made a comment.
Excellent.
I have been taking care of everyone in my life and never knew about taking care of myself.
Yeah.
But it's a few years now I have been trying to self-care, and it's hard.
It is. And Chrissy, the first thing I would suggest to you is get rid of that word trying. Okay, so we've had this conversation before on Angel Heart Radio. The word trying is a lower energy word in most instances. Sometimes there's no other word you can replace it with. But you can't try and do something. You either do it or you don't. So if you are taking steps to ensure self-care, you are doing it. You're not trying to do it. And if it's not quite working out, if it hasn't quite got to the energy that you're after, it just means you're not there yet. So what other action do you need to take to add you more into the mix? So trying, in that instance, the word trying is a taboo, and you are encouraged to reduce it out of your vocabulary, because you either do or you don't. You make a choice or you don't. And if something hasn't worked out, as I said, look at what you're doing and seeing what in there is not quite serving you at your highest good at the moment, and what can you replace it with. And, you know, it's quite often small steps. We've spoken, Annette, often about what are your favourite places, like what feeds your soul. And they're not always expensive things, and they're not always things you can do. But if it's going to the beach and you can't go to the beach, have a beach on your background of your computer. I did one the other day. Look, can you see it? Disregard the Emma, because my granddaughter was sitting here and thought she'd write her name, which is lovely. So I knew it was her. But I have that as my my mouse pad.
Lovely.
You know, so I'm looking at the beach that's lovely. And my background is a photo of this magnificent gum tree, which when I turn the computer on, I see the power of this gum tree and all its nooks and crannies and angles and distortions. And it's stunning. It's not perfect. It's stunning.
Lovely. What about making time for ourselves, whether it means putting it in our diary or in our day? Where do we fit ourselves? Or when we open our eyes of a morning, is it, you know, wham, bam, and up we get? Or do we take a few minutes? And of course, that depends on our own situation as to whether we can or whether we're attending to children, etc., etc.
There's a lovely children's storybook, if you can get hold of it, Chrissy, which is, you just sit there and you go, oh my God, this is so true. And it's called Just 5 Minutes Peace. And it's about a mother elephant who's trying to get 5 minutes peace, and she's got a young family, and she does everything she can to get away, like even to going in the bath and reading the paper, and everyone visits her in the bathroom. So she doesn't get those 5 minutes peace at all. I think she ended up getting it for 3 minutes and 2 seconds was her timer. But, you know, we all at times find it not so easy to get those 5 minutes peace. But if you can teach yourself different things, I teach my clients, it takes a bit of time to set it in place, but it's an instant relaxation button on our body, which I'm happy to share if Annette wants me to.
I think that'd be fabulous. Marnie.
So what we do is we engage our 5 senses, Annette. So we've got our hearing, our taste, our smell, our sight, and our feeling. And what you need to do is, on a piece of paper, ask yourself, write those 5 senses down first, and then say to yourself, where is my feel-good place? Now, there's no set point for anyone, but if yours might be in your room, in a favourite chair, it might be at the beach, it might be in a park, maybe it's driving. It doesn't matter where it is, just where is it? And wherever it is, write it on a piece of paper, on that piece of paper beside you. And then say, what's my favourite smell? And again, it can be anything, but generally it's something that makes you feel nurtured. So is it the smell of grandma's apple pie, or is it a favourite perfume, or is it a special flower that you love to buy, or if you get it, you feel very blessed? So whatever it is, write that smell down. What's your feel-good food? Now, your feel-good food is generally not kale chips. That's a very modern thing, okay? But what were you given as a child that nurtured you? Okay, and when you think of it, you actually get the saliva growing in your mouth because you go, oh, that was so good. It's what I got. It meant I was being cared for. And if someone didn't do that for you, if you had a childhood where it didn't do it, what have you done for other people that you know means nurturing and caring? All right. And again, what sound is comfortable for you? What makes you feel sound? Is it the sound of a heartbeat? Is it the sound of the ocean? Is it just the sound of being seated in your garden with the bees buzzing around and the birds? Whatever it is, write it down. And then what was the last one? Hearing. What can you hear? Oh, that's sound. Touch. So what touches you? What touch feels good? Is it silk? Is it satin? Is it grass? Is it sand? Doesn't matter. But when you've captured all of those items, I want you to imagine that you're placing them, you're picking them up, and you've got a beautiful bowl in front of you, and you're energetically picking up each of those items and putting it in a bowl. And that bowl you're clasping in your hands like this. All right. And you bring it together so that all of those feel good things for you, because this is all about you and nobody else at all, is small enough that you can place it fairly in your heart. And then I want you to take your ring finger on your left hand and touch the tip of your nose. So you've taken your hands from your heart, you get your ring finger, touch the tip of your nose. When you consciously do that, that touching of the tip of your nose is a reminder of your body to take a breath, that all of those things that nurture and care for you are in your heart and soul, and you can ask for them at any time. And it actually is like an instant meditation, because having identified those things and feeling that comfort and being wrapped in that self-care makes you step back and feel nurtured and breathe. And that's what we need to do. And it's not like meditation where you can't do it, where you can't touch your nose when you're driving. So if you're feeling overwhelmed for any reason whatsoever, do that signal, do that ring finger to the tip of your nose. And your body goes, I know why you're doing that, because it's that memory trigger. And when you've done it, you just go, oh, thank you. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to harbor it. You just need to thank your body. And you will actually notice that your energy slows. So you're not as busy, you're not as agitated, you're just, you come down a step. It's very simple.
Well, Chrissy says, thank you so much. She had also said that her place is sitting looking up at the sky. But
lovely.
Of course, being a single mum, it's very hard. And
so have lots of clouds around in your house. Get pictures of clouds and things like that. So, because that will be like, if things are being overwhelmed, you're a single mum, so there's a lot of stuff going on, you need that pause. So by just seeing a beautiful picture of a cloudscape on your wall, looking at it, you go, oh, yeah, I love that. It's that momentary pause.
Yep. Pausing, gratitude. I liked what you said earlier, Marnie, about what we have, the hindsight, but being able to look at the inner positive and not beat ourselves up because we missed something.
Yeah.
It's more, oh, thank you. And thank you for the awareness that I now have.
Yeah. And the more we listen to that intuition and that self-talk, the more in tune we become as well, because we start to, it just becomes. It's not something we have to work on as much. It just is, we be like you do. Everything you do is being in the moment. Or when we learn to engage or to identify or interpret those signals, we be, and we be okay.
Yeah.
Because you use be a lot, don't you?
I do.
Be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So explain that to others who don't quite get that.
Well, when I use the word be, I use capital letters. When I use the word being or any word that starts with be, like believe, I put the be in there because I do believe that it helps me, and hopefully it might be a trigger. A friend picked it up once and said, oh, I like the way you write being, because it is about us being. How am I? Who am I? And who am I being?
Yep, absolutely. Anything you can do that's a positive reinforcement of anything you do that works, you do it. And if you do something and it doesn't work, you go, oh, okay, oops, what can I change? Because if you don't change the ingredients, or if you don't change the actions that created the end result that you didn't like, and you do the same thing again, you're going to get the same result. So you need to be able to change some aspect. It's sometimes the challenge is working out what aspect you need to change. So if you can think of life, we've said this before, think of life a little bit like cooking a cake or making a recipe. If the ingredients that I'm putting together aren't actually what I want as the end result, I'm not going to get the end result that I'm wanting at the end. So what do I need to change? What do I need to take out or add to actually get what I'm after? And we often stop, like with natural therapy, and I should imagine that you work a lot with it as well, the energy of the 5-element philosophy, where everything is in harmony in our life, that creates more harmony, sort of thing. And if you look at the Chinese 5-element theory, and it's something people can Google as well, and it shows you those the wood, like the fire, wood, earth, metal, water elements. And quite often you end up stopping at one of those elements and don't go any further because it didn't work. So you go, oh, well, that's no use, I've given that away. What you need to do is backtrack and go, okay, well, what action did I need to take that gives me a different outcome, rather than just saying full stop, well, that never works, I'm not doing it again. And it might take several goes for something to achieve, but each time you're adding more knowledge to it. So you've grown more in your knowledge bank and your ability to change actions. Teach your children that they don't have to get it right the first time. They just need to be encouraged enough to keep having a go. And no trying, remember? You're not allowed to try. They either do it or they don't.
That's 2 very, very good points, because I have seen over the years children who do not enjoy making mistakes. They want to be perfect. And it's really quite difficult to try and help them understand that that's not possible. As much as I'd love to be perfect too, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So how can we, yes, mistakes are how we learn.
Yeah. And it's not about, you encourage them. You don't have to tell them you've got it perfectly. If you want a different outcome, you have to say, okay, that's a really good attempt. What else can you do? How could that be improved? Or what could you do slightly different? And it teaches them that analytical and that creative thinking as well. And I drew 3 cards before the show as well from my angel feathers, and they were these cards here. And the first one was gold, violet, and crimson. But crimson is engaging those creative talents. So if you need to self-care and nurture, if you need to look after you, how can you be creative in doing that? Is it by having a designated time in the day where you just have a cup of your favorite drink and sit for 5 minutes? Now, does that mean you have to get up 5 minutes earlier? Well, maybe. Or does it just mean you have to factor your 5 minutes into the day? But you definitely need to, you do need to prioritize yourself, because if you are the main person that people are relying on, if something happens to you, you can't help them. So you definitely need to make you a priority. You need to honor yourself.
That's so important. They're self-honoring, because once again, how often do we do that?
You become almost a martyr if you don't honor yourself sometimes. Like it's, I'm the only one. Well, yeah, you might be the only one, but you need to get it. Again, it's about the energy that you're attaching to the statements that you're making. All right. So if the statement, I'm the only one who cares, deflates your energy because it's overwhelming, is that doing you any service by making that statement? Or if you say I'm the only one that can help X, Y, and Z, and that makes you feel good, well, that should be okay, because it's empowering. It's not depowering. So what words are you using that is depowering what you're doing or taking away your power? Because you've got to serve yourself. You must put yourself first on so many occasions.
Yes. Putting ourselves first in a loving way. The balance isn't there. Yes,
it's got to be in your highest good. And then that was what we said at the beginning. It's not about being selfish or self-opinionated or totally self-focused. It's about making sure that as you are a pivotal person in many people's lives, including yourself, that you need to be well enough to be able to help them.
Oh, and I thought an excellent topic, especially for this time of the year, Marnie, because people are starting to realize, oh, Christmas is coming up. And yes, it can be a very joy-filled time. I delight in being out and about, seeing the decorations, and there's a lovely feel in the community. However, there are usually also stresses involved, and I'm sure next month that would be a good topic, actually, how to enjoy festive times to the full. How can we ease our responsibilities so that everybody enjoys it?
It's not even just about, it's going to be busy. It is already busy. Like when you get your calendar and every day it's got something on it, you go, oh, goodness me. But again, you have to have some quieter time in there. Have you got time to just go somewhere and sit or what do you need? If you sat down and talked to yourself and put them in the other chair, what do you need? What time away do you need? What would fill your soul and fill your energy cycle to be able to give you the impetus and energy to keep going? What is it? Because it won't be the same for every person. It'll be different for everybody.
Yes.
But if you can identify it, it's really good. And you find sometimes it's easier to identify if you have your friend's hat on rather than your own hat. Because you're looking you're looking to see what solutions you can come up with to the question. Whereas when it's just you and your hat, you go, oh, it's too hard. I'll think of it another day. I'm not doing it now. So think of yourself talking to your best friend, and your best friend is you. So what does your best friend need? What are they after? Do they need to engage with someone? I mean, we've had an unusual time in the universe in recent years as well. And that has added burdens to a lot of people. But how do you fill your own bucket? What does your bucket need? What ingredients need to go in there?
Yes. And we'd like to welcome Julie Kiss to the
show. Lovely. Hello, Julie.
Thank you for joining us. Yes. Marnie, you were talking about a stress bucket?
Yep. Well, any bucket. I have stress buckets. So I teach my clients to understand that life you have a stress bucket on one side of your life and you have life energy on the other. When your stress bucket exceeds its capacity, your health will cover the deficit. And it just depends on how much you can get out of that stress bucket to what the health deficit's going to be. So there's always a payback, guys. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's you're buying something or it's your energy in yourself. So you have to utilize the things that help you to pick yourself up and reduce some of the stress out of the stress bucket, because you haven't always got the capacity to take it all out. So it's okay to have some stress in there. Stress does motivate us at times, but it's also good to be aware if there's some smaller ones you can take out that don't need to be in there.
Julie is saying she needs a stress bucket.
Make one. You already have one, Julie. You need to have a visual of it. I have got one in here, actually. It's not the stress one. I've got the other one. Hang on. Oh yeah, there he is. I just use a bucket.
Oh wow!
And that's Henry. That lovely orange bucket in the middle. That's Henry, my stress bucket. And it can be full of anything. Like this got all sorts of stuff in it today. But if you can think of it as a real vessel, it helps you to understand what's going into it. So when I do workshops and corporate talks and things like that, we'll often get the participants to write some of the words of the stress on a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard, and they will actually put it into the stress bucket. And what we then get them to do, so they've done that in one activity, and then the next activity is, okay, take a piece of stress out of the stress bucket, and what's the solution for that? So on the flip side, write a solution and put that in another coloured bucket, which is your life energy. And I call that Deliza. So mine are Henry and Deliza, which comes from my parents named that many years ago from the song There's a Hole in My Bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dad said it, I went down and asked him to name my stress bucket because I was trying to work on the analogy for clients. And Dad just come out and said Deliza. And we went, what? I didn't know what he was on. And he said, the hole in the bucket. And it's a very old German parable or folk song. So I said, that's perfect. Henry is my stress bucket. So I call it, if you have a Henry in your life, don't call your stress bucket Henry. So come up with a different name. Otherwise, it gets complicated. So name your stress bucket, name your life energy, and know what goes into both. So if you can identify your stresses, and that's the biggest thing with kinesiology when I'm working with clients, is identifying why they feel like they feel and where they're holding it in their body. Because education and information is empowering. It helps. If you don't know, how can you fix it? Like if you don't know why you're feeling like you are, how can you do anything about it? How will you know if a solution goes past?
Julie's delighted. She's going to make a stress bucket.
Excellent, Julie. Awesome. And make your life energy one as well, remember?
Yes. We need the balance.
We need the balance. And remember the colours. So I don't know if it's any hint or not, but the colours of the angel feathers today were gold, violet, and crimson. So if that helps you at all, because quite often the angels give us messages that are relevant to the people listening. And the relevance is different for everybody, but it's relevant. So they're colours that are pivotal from today's talk. So gold, violet. Now, violet is that very lovely in between dark purple and purple. It's that lovely soft purple. It's not mauve, so it's got a lot of colour to it. And then crimson is that in between yellow sort of colour. Yellow, in between red. So it's not red and it's not pink. It's a crimson. Yes. And it's already telling you that you've got innate talents to create your own stress bucket. So, as I said, make sure you've got your other side as well. Don't be uneven.
Interesting. I would like to think that the life energy bucket is gold.
Well, gold is full circle.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the message from the angels is the full circle is gold. The violet is spiritual growth and peace. So as you create your stress bucket and your life energy bucket, it gives you that peace and harmony to be able to manage and cope. Nice. I mean, they're all, we're given symbols as guides. Okay, so what they do is they come, we'll remember them, or they're pivotal. Like when I've got a client and something shows up and I start talking about it, I mean, the number of times they go, oh my God, I've just talked about that with someone, or I've just seen that, or that's my special color or something. And you don't have that knowledge prior to it showing up from the universe. The angels gift you all these things. So use them as guideposts. So if you're making decisions and crimson is a color that has come up, well, crimson, if you see it again, they're saying, hey, I told you about this color. And look into why, like discover the color crimson and see what it's doing. And, you know, the angel feathers have the totem animals as well. So, you know, can you attach a totem to those symbols as well? Unless it's a color that some people go, oh, that's my favorite color in the world. You know, the crimson is a spider of all things. So it's all about having the connections and the network around you, or your own network.
You've mentioned a spider there, Marnie. I think of Scott Alexander King and his book on the messages from animals and insects. I found the tiniest ladybird inside on my wall the other day, and I went, oh my goodness, thank you. I adore ladybirds, and I'm yet to look out for the special message. At the time I thought, I must go and get Scott's book and have a look. There'll be a message there for sure.
Absolutely. And look, that becomes then a pivotal thing. Like, you know, some people constantly see dragonflies or butterflies, and it means something to them. So the ladybird, so from the angel feathers, the ladybird is all about love and your secret desire. So it's connected to the color peach.
Thank you.
So, there's messages all around, and what you do is when you start to use them as guideposts, it doesn't mean that they're the only reason you decide to do something, but the angels are helping guide you to making a decision. What you then add to it is common sense and your own personal beliefs and needs or reasons. So, but they're just gifting you. So there's crimson in the back of your screen at the back. There's pink, but there's that crimson colour as well on Angel Heart Radio. It's half the heart. Yes, and you don't see that straight away. Like I'm sitting here looking at you and they're like, oh, gosh, there's crimson.
Sometimes it can take, for me, a while for the penny to drop, and then all of a sudden, oh, wow.
Yeah. So, find your guideposts. Write down a list of things that when they appear or happen, you're getting a message from someone or something, or it's a commonality. So it's like a common denominator when things have gone right. And when you anchor them and when you acknowledge them and when you identify them, it is amazing how often they turn up. And a prime example of that is when you decide to buy a new car and you've decided you want a blue whatever because nobody else has a blue whatever. And you've looked and they're not around anywhere, but you've made that decision and you've come to it and it becomes that's what you want. Well, from that day on, that's all you see. You see that blue whatever everywhere, and yet it's always been there. It just wasn't part of your conscious awareness. So you need to engage your conscious and your subconscious so they're working on your behalf in your highest good. And, those messages can be messages of be aware as well. They don't always have to be positive. It can be a situation where your gut or your feeling is saying, oh, just be aware. It doesn't mean you have to be scared. It just means why are my awareness antennas raising up? What do I need to be mindful of in this situation?
Oh, lovely advice, Marnie. Thank you.
Boss lady, look, I'm too bossy.
How do you? I just forgot to put my phone on silent this morning.
Oh, right. Oh, I haven't. Yeah, mine's not either. Ditto. I've just done the same thing.
Oh, interesting, isn't it? How we, can get caught out. Live radio, live productions.
Yes. But we're real.
That's right. This is us.
You can almost poke us.
If only. So how do you set time for Marnie? Because you've got a lot of balls to juggle.
Yes. And I'm conscious that I need time for myself. So I've learned to say no, which has been a really big one for me. Like you try and please everybody and you can't always. So you have to go, which is in my highest good today or tomorrow or whenever something's happening. So I'm sort of pulling back a little bit because my situation has increased with care for grandchildren. So, which is lovely and I love it. And I know it won't be forever because once you're at school, you're not as needed as much because you're not the parent. So it definitely has been taking the time. So I enjoy late at night. I used to have a bath. The bath was my big one. I would get the bath, I'd turn the lights off, put on the candles and put lots of bubbles in there and I'd just wallow and it would be lovely. But this house doesn't have a bath, so I can't do that now. So I have to find other things. And I must admit, working in the office that I'm working in now, I can see the backyard, whereas our other previous house, I couldn't look out the office. It was, in a room contained sort of thing. So I sit here and I look at the clouds and the birds and the trees moving and that's for me very comforting and very calming. But nighttime I tend to, when everyone's gone to bed, I will just sit and either have a drink of some sort, usually coffee because I can sleep on a meat hook, and watch something that is just, it doesn't take any energy just by watching it, or it lifts my soul by watching it, but it's not always something that other people would watch. And definitely shopping. Like I enjoy going to the shops, not so much lately, but meeting up with a friend and just wandering around the shops with no agenda, just being able to do it and having the time that it's not upsetting anyone else that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So I think they're your big things, and enjoying your work is another time. And I know with clients, I have to have that space in between clients to actually regather my thoughts and close the door virtually on their treatment, so that the next door that opens up is a different person. So you need to have almost a routine in place for that to be able to happen. So they're my things. And patting the dog. I love the cat sitting on my lap. You know, all those kind of things, or just sharing, you know, playtime with the littlies.
Gorgeous.
That's me. That's me time.
Yes. Me time, is important. I like the way you say remembering to say no, because I think that sometimes when we're asked to do something, sometimes we feel, I've got to say yes. Well, no, we don't have to say yes at all.
And a lot of that saying no for me in this last 12 months has been to business arrangements that I normally would have said, oh, yeah, no, I'll do that. Whereas now I think, do I want to do that? And if I've got to say that, I know the answer. If I have to say, do I really want to do that? Or do I want to exchange family time for that? And if I've got to really sit and think about that, I know which the answer is. It's no, I don't. So
now, Julie is very grateful to have heard your great advice.
Thank you, Julie. Has it helped? Or did she need clarification on anything? No? Okay.
We'll wait.
Yep. We will.
People have to write.
Yes, they have to type. Oh, I'm a dinosaur typer. I'm getting better, but not quick. And it taps. If we try and do it, it taps.
So
thank you. Lovely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Now, we were talking earlier about smells. So a lot of people now are very aware of essential oils as a bonus or a help. So, you know, you'll be drawn to one or the other. So just for self-care and nurturing, I'm just looking at a list at the moment. So there's one called Fragonia, but it's not as easy to get, and it takes you from feeling fragile. So if you're feeling very fragile and you need to have dignity or get out of that fragility, Fragonia is Fragonia. I think it's an Australian oil, but you can find it. A lot of places are starting to get it out. And myrtle is another one that shows up. So myrtle takes you from feeling disheartened. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, we often lose the heart and soul of who we are. All right. So myrtle allows you to go from disheartened to being illuminated. So it lights the light. It opens the light for you. And myrtle's got a very distinct smell to it. For me, lime is lovely. Lime is zingy. It's zesty. It picks you up. It sort of gives you this kick as well. I can't see lime on here. It'll be on here, and I just can't even see it on my list. Oh, it takes you from feeling agitated to calm. So that's why I like lime. I love the fruity. I'm drawn more to fruity flavored or fruity smelling oils. I'm not as drawn to what I call the heavier oils. I value them all, but personal choice is one that I would prefer a lighter, zestier kind of one. And I love vanilla too. I love the smell of vanilla. It's not easy to get as an oil. I think it's more of they call it an absolute or something. It's a bit like some of the flowers, they can't actually drain oil out of it, but they can capture the smell. I'm waiting for strawberry oil to come out because I just love the smell of strawberries.
I like the taste of them too.
And the taste. Oh, absolutely. But the oil, it's not as easy to get a strawberry oil apparently. So if you do get a strawberry oil, it's a manufactured smell. But if you like it, go for it. Doesn't matter.
Julie mentions Marnie. She's going to work on her buckets and
Excellent.
saying no and having me time.
Good girl. Well done. High five. We'll give you a high five. There you go. So, because you reap the rewards of self-care,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it takes that total frazzleness out of your life. And you can be busy and not frazzled, but sometimes it catches up on you. So you need those space times. You need those down times. It's a bit like think of having a remote control where you're watching a movie, but you have the potential to push pause so you can go to the toilet. So you need that pause button. So how can you put it in place?
Yes, that's a good one.
And I think you're like me, you often buy yourself a bunch of flowers, don't you, to nurture yourself?
Yes. At the moment, I'm very fortunate because they're in the garden.
Lovely.
I was given some on Saturday night, which was beautiful, a lovely native arrangement. And there are lots of roses around at the moment, and they're beautiful. And so, yeah. And girlfriend brought me some sweet peas.
Oh, I love sweet peas.
They are just beautiful.
They're such a fragile flower,
Yes.
aren't they? But they're so pretty. And in a bunch, they're always a bunch of sweet peas. You don't usually get one.
No, that's true.
You know, they're really nice. They're a happy, to me, they're like a bunch of excited children, sweet peas. They're really joyful and happy.
Yes, I'm looking at them at the moment. Beautiful, beautiful.
Lovely. So, you know, you can do that for yourself too, like ladies that are listening, or men, buy a bunch of flowers for no other reason than you can.
Well, you do that regularly for yourself.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because they're so inexpensive. You know, you can pick them up at different places for really reasonable amounts. It's not as if you're spending hundreds of dollars. Under $15. And that might be a lot if you haven't got a lot of spare cash at the time. But is it a lot to pay for a remedy that picks you up? You know, if you went to a doctor or got really ill, you would pay more than $15. So look at the relative price for what it's doing for you.
Now, Carol has just joined us, and she said she was listening in, just found Fregonia in my collection. That's my takeaway for today.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So you already had it. And as I said, it's an unusual smelling oil, but it's very, very inspiring oil. So it can be used a lot for emotional healing, Fregonia. Often in combination.
Fregonia.
Yeah, fairly sure it's is it from northern New South Wales?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite often paired with one called Kunzia, which is used to be a Tasmanian oil. But Fregonia is used quite often for emotional trauma as well. So it helps to heal that emotional, because you remember, any trauma that you've experienced, you can't change what you've been through. What you have to do is change your response to a memory trigger of it now. So I often use Fregonia in the concept of you've got scars from the emotional, sorry, being attacked by a hare. You've got scars from the emotional trauma, but if you can apply Fregonia to it, it heals the skin. It takes the gnarliness out of the scarring so that the scarring is more knitted and it heals. It's a healing oil.
So I've always known vitamin E is very good.
Yeah. Well, but you don't usually use vitamin E as a smell, as an essential oil.
Sorry. No. When you were talking about scarring.
Yeah, but this is like a energetic scarring almost. I don't know that I'd put Fregonia on a real scar. You could. There'd be nothing to stop you. But you know, when a scar that's healed and the scab, it sounds gross, but when the scab has left and you're left with the skin, if you've got what's called a keloid scar, the keloid is usually when there's been an emotional trauma in the healing of the skin. Okay, so what do you need to do to help the direction of the skin to heal more evenly? How can you release the emotional scarring from there? And that's where we would often use Fregonia. Okay. And you can also, because if you think back to what happened when that scar happened, have you dealt with it? Have you come to terms with it? Have you made peace with that whatever happened. Because you'll often find, if you'll say to people, it's got quite a raised scar, yeah, that was a bad time in my life kind of thing. Well, your body has retained that negative, the negative emotion. So how can you address the emotion? Do you need to just bring it out in the open and heal it that way? Or can you do some energy work on the scarring area? Or what can you do to, again, it's about information. If you know why, or you realise that you're carrying a burden from that time, what can you do to allay some of that?
I'm always amazed, Marnie, at how the body heals itself. It's just incredible. When that scab does fall off, the skin is perfect.
Nothing sometimes. Yeah. And some surgeons are so neat and tidy in what they do that you end up with this very, very fine line. But then you can just as easily end up with quite a messy line as well. And it really does depend too on what happened and how much skin was left. I mean, they can only stitch together enough skin, can't they?
That's so true, yes.
So, but definitely there is always, or nearly always, an emotional trigger into that injury.
Even if I'm freaked out by rose thorns while I'm trying to pick them.
Someone said to me once with that is, what's getting under your skin? If you're being hooked by rose thorns, who's getting under your skin? Not so much what. So who's reminding you with that bit of a jab?
That's an interesting thought.
And we grip a rose. So what's your grip on life? What's happening? What's stopping you hanging on?
Right.
We've got some beautiful rose thorns. Well, copious rose thorns where we're living now in our new home. There's some beautiful bushes. There was really lovely roses scattered around the place, but geez, there's a couple of them that they're a very interesting bush to try and pick the bud because
because some
go all the way. Oh,
yes, some roses have thin, sparse thorns, whereas
they have one
others,
here and one there, and this one's all the way through. It's almost as if say, watch me but don't touch me.
Yeah. Enjoy me here.
Yep. Yes, where I am. I suit where I am. And actually, when you look at in hindsight again, when you pick that particular rose, it doesn't last long. It is one more for the enjoyment of sight and for cutting and putting in a vase. Because really, there's very little space to hang on to cut and then hold it to be putting it in a vase. So it is about, for that particular rose, it is in a spot that is visually appealing. And you see it because it's in front of the kitchen and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of saying to me, don't pick me, just love me.
Yes. Oh, again, interesting food for thought. Because I am more likely to choose the ones that have less thorns because it is easier to grab them and pick them.
My little granddaughters are finding a delight in having flowers that they can pick, right? And they like the buds, so that when the buds are there, they want to pick some for mummy, and we sit there, we're holding some of them up here sometimes. And my youngest granddaughter, the one that wrote Emma on my book here, she decided to cut it off right at the flower. She didn't leave any stem at all. I went, oh no, now what are we going to do? So I had to find a little bowl that I could put some water in, that the rose could just sit in the water, and she put that on mummy's desk. So yeah, she wasn't going to be bitten by a thorn, she just gone.
Yeah. Well, that's natural, isn't it? Children do when they pick daisies, it's the same thing.
Yeah, they cut it right at the top.
Yes, because they see the flower, and that's the important part to them.
Yeah. Just don't fit in vases very well.
No, that's right. So a learning experience.
It is, and it's nice to see them enjoying picking a flower and knowing picking it for someone else too, not always for themselves.
That's right. Yeah,
I think it's lovely. I grew up with mum always having a beautiful garden. It didn't matter if we were in rented houses or not. Mum and dad always put in a garden, and there were always flowers. You know, just your basic common flowers. There weren't always roses and fancy ones, but always a bush. And my mum had a most amazing knack of being able to go, if it was just green around, she'd pick all the different greens and just put them in a vase in such a way that they were an arrangement. And I put them in a vase, and that's what they look like. And they go. She would just move them around a little bit, and she just had this lovely flair.
Oh.
So I grew up, I'm not a gardener, but I've always grown up loving a garden.
Right.
I know that they're almost an oxymoron, but I don't feel the need to have to plant and grow, but I enjoy what happens.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So gardening's a big thing for a lot of people, for self-care and nurturing.
Yes.
We didn't even think of it, but planting, playing in the soil is very grounding. It's Mother Earth, so you're getting that nourishment from Mother Earth as you're doing something that's giving life almost to a plant.
True. Now, Carol has just mentioned that emotions for Fregonia, getting back to that, fragile versus dignity.
Yes, they were the emotions, yeah.
Right.
So if you're feeling fragile, it's taking you from feeling fragile and moving you into dignity.
Well, for some reason, it needed to be repeated.
Well, there you go. Because maybe you needed to know why. So just think, if you're emotionally upset about something, you can be feeling quite fragile about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I encourage people that if they're drawn to something, read the story. I mean, I'm getting the emotional barometer here from Robbie Zirk's work, and she has a beautiful book called Blossoming Hearts, the most gorgeous essential oil book that explains, with her oils, the ones that she uses, it'll tell the story of that oil that she's interpreted. I also use my, I'm a Young Living distributor, so I'll use my Young Living book, and they go into the emotional benefits and they go into the practical benefits, but then the emotional benefits of the fragrance as well of different oils. And the story of the product is hugely informative and beneficial to the person who's drawn to whatever that product is. So it doesn't matter if it's an angel card or an oil or a flower or anything at all, or a name. Sometimes we need to look up the name. What does the name represent to us on a person? Like, look up the story of the name. What is the they call it the beginnings of your name? What's that called in it? It's not meanings of your name, but
yes, doesn't,
like origins or something like that.
Yes, both, yeah.
Yeah, and it comes,
the origin, and the meaning. Mm-hmm.
And you often get it from different nationalities too. Like there'll be an Irish meaning and a Greek meaning or something like that. But you'll get drawn to look, or it takes you down a rabbit hole sometimes, because then you go there and you go somewhere else and you forget why you started. But it's been a lovely time.
Indeed. Now, Carol's saying that she did a course with Robbie Zek years ago.
Yeah, so did I.
I met Robbie years ago too. Fascinating.
Oh, she's lovely.
The connections, though, Marnie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robbie for years, and now here you are mentioning her, and Carol's done a course with her.
Yeah, well, she's a kinesiologist, see. So she, as a kinesiologist, we have to do these professional development things. And a couple of years ago now, it must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, someone sponsored Robbie to come to Queensland and do an essential oil, like essential oils one, not emotional healing. So it's emotional healing that she does with oils. Mm-hmm. And I went, oh, wow, this is awesome. It fitted into my time frame. It was local. It was down the road. I could get away for that weekend. And honest to me, it was like coming home for me in how I've always used the oils. I have always used the oils as an emotional, spiritual tool that has a ongoing healing effect on people with ailments and stuff that's going on in their lives. And the story was always very beneficial for me. But at the time, I was using mainly my essential oil reference book. But when I got Robbie's, her one, Blossoming Hearts, and it's the most gorgeous book. I haven't got it local or close to me at the moment, but it's got that, it's a bit like the colours behind you. It's all those pinks and pinky hues and stuff. And in the middle is the golden heart. And it's called Blossoming Heart. So if the listeners ever get the chance, it's available on her website. I know you can get it, but they just have the most lovely explanation of the oils that she found beneficial in emotional healing. And as do most therapist, really. And it doesn't matter where you get your oils from. Again, it's about what are you drawn to? Why are you drawn to those? And can you investigate the story of why? Because honestly, for your clients, it's huge.
Robbie was the one who gave me the idea of gifting. I can remember going to a special night pre-Christmas, and everybody, we take a gift and you put it in the circle, and then you were invited to, one by one, go into the circle and choose a gift, and then choose who you were going to give it to. And that's amazing how tuning into the energy, energy of the gift, and then who am I to give it to? And, you know, there were people we didn't know. So God bless Robbie
Zirk. Yeah. But isn't it lovely? Like, I didn't know you knew her, and I didn't know Carol knew her. So isn't that amazing that between us, we all have these different stories and connections for her. And obviously Carol's got the barometer of healing and emotions. It's one of my go-to emotional charts.
I think she's got the book.
And the book. The book's lovely.
Yeah. So very, very nice. Well, Marnie.
I know. I can't believe it.
Time.
How did that happen?
I know.
All right. Well, good luck. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Annette, once again for allowing me to join you, and I will see you in December.
Yes, it's always a pleasure, Marnie.
All right. Thanks, lovey. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
And I just simply want to remind everybody that next week, we've got a really another special show, because today's been special with Marnie. Next week, Lois Kugler will be with me, and Shaylee Atwood from America is going to share her story of how she spent 3 days in heaven. So I'm absolutely fascinated by Shaylee's story, and I'm sure that you will be too. And then the following week, I have the pleasure of having, let me get this right, Scott Russell Hill, who is a psychic profiler, and Scott will be fascinating to listen to, I'm sure. And you'll want to tune in, and if you're prepared to share your birth date with Scott, he might be able to, with a question, he might be able to answer it for you. In the meantime, let's come back to being in the now. How are you feeling? How does your day look? Have you put in time for you? Most important. Thank you for joining me, and may you enjoy spreading the love throughout your world in the coming minutes, days, and weeks. Much love. Bye.